Welcome to episode 11 of Montana Voices. So we have a lot of content, but let's get our business out of the way here.
Indeed. Just like to say it's great to be here. Thank you for joining us today. Glad you could be here. If you're probably listening to this right now at our website. If you're not and you're somehow listening to this on any other kind of format, you can always reach us on our website there, montanavoicespodcast.com. If you'd like to reach out to us with any kind of comments or concerns, our email address is montanavoices@gmail.com. And if you'd like to catch our latest episodes, usually the easiest way to find them is going to be at our YouTube channel. You can go ahead and find that if you just search for Montana Voices Podcast.
Absolutely, and new thing, we are on Spotify. Spotify opened up to podcasts, and we are proud to be one of the early adopters there.
It is probably going to be time for me to get back on Spotify again.
Yeah, you can spend money at it if you'd like. It's not entirely free, but podcasts are free. You can stream and listen, and I'm not sure if anybody's listening there, but it's pretty new. I don't even know if we get stats from them. Let's go ahead and run right into our recaps. Once again, there's no corrections other than some style things. I guess people suggest we should argue a bit more.
Indeed, people feel that we're being a little too corrected, it seems, and I feel a need to disagree on that point, just to prove my point. But
and I can understand that, given the last episode, we were talking about a few different issues that hit really close to home for us, and as a fear, I wouldn't say doxing ourselves, having some secrecy in our lives, some details and some things were danced around, so I can understand that.
That said, moving on with the topics that we were talking about last week, we keep bringing it up here, but I feel like this is an issue that needs to keep a fire lit under it, if you will, the Great Falls Public School District's heating issues.
Well, the E-City beat is certainly not letting it go as well, so we should probably stick in line with them.
They would definitely know in this town for certain. That said, it is worth noting, however, I just found this out today, Jim, and I'm throwing this in here on everyone without bringing it up on the docket, but sounds like they had moved all the kids out of Roosevelt in order to move them into the Giant Springs School. Now they're getting ready for Longfellow to be remodeled, it sounds like. So in preparation to do so, they're shipping all the Longfellow kids over to Roosevelt now.
Was Roosevelt repaired, or I thought that was in a crumbling state?
Hard to say. I'm thinking that the third floor's probably still got some issues to it. I'm just waiting for the E-City beat to catch wind of this and what their opinion's going to be, I must say.
Weren't they going to, or at least rumors of tearing down Roosevelt School?
That is the overall plan, I believe, in the future for that place.
Well, it's good enough for the time being, I guess. I mean, they're just Longfellow kids. They're mostly brown anyway, which is going to bring us into the one of the main topics for this episode. We're going to Browning. So the B-roll, if you are watching this on YouTube, is a drive through Browning. Yeah, Great Falls High. That is interesting. That still keeps coming up. We haven't even had much of a winter to speak of, so I guess heating is still. I think this is all just blowing hard.
No doubt. Those kids are going to be in real trouble there if those temperatures dip down to what they used to be, back when we were in high school.
Speaking of Great Falls issues, superintendent pay. Is that Hauk? Is that the old superintendent, or
no,
soon to be?
No. Hauk is, I believe, a commissioner. She is the director for the Paris Gibson Square Museum. I know that much. No, you're thinking of Tammy Lacey, who is the Great Falls superintendent. Currently, she's getting paid $108K, I guess is the number I'm looking at here on the docket. I'm hoping you wrote down the right number. But it looks like...
I got it from E-City Beat.
Beat. They never lie.
It's hard to say.
So E-City Beat tells us 108. The number's going to jump up from there to $150K. Pretty steep. I wish I was getting paid that much.
Well, you're also not in charge of a couple 1,000 employees.
And the future of just as many children.
And have a doctorate, which I believe was a prerequisite to even interview.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been trying to pay off my student loans, and I just have an associate's, and that is expensive to start out with. So I can only imagine what her loans were.
Anyways, it's way too much. I went to school for like 6 years. I think I changed majors a few different times till I finally got settled in, but way too much. My sister is going to going after her master's degree,
Whew.
and is she's
sorry, that
she's
was
getting,
my wallet cringing in my back pocket there.
almost up to 6 figures for her responsibility there. So that's 150K is what they're advertising the new position as. 108 is a lot, but I have real mixed feelings on this, and it sounds like there's been some outcry from the community on paying somebody like a superintendent 6 figures. Even 108 seems a lot, but in contrast, I mean, I know teachers as a whole. Granted, it's I wouldn't say cushy. It's consistent, and there's some union benefits and decent compensation. But you're not in this for the money, and you can, in my opinion, always tell the people that are. So that apparently doesn't translate to superintendents. They are in it for the money, I suppose, at 150,000.
Well, yeah, and I mean, at that point, you almost have to wonder. A superintendent's more of a managing job than it is like a teaching job, So, I can't see like somebody in the superintendent job being somebody in the first place. It's going to be, I love seeing kids learn stuff,
I love managing.
Yeah, I love managing. You're going to find, I'm sure, they'd probably pick the person who their lifelong dream was to be a manager for that, because they're going to be able to manage stuff a little bit better.
And they went to school and got a doctorate and all the things, and maybe it's one of those jobs that you only notice that when it's going wrong. So hopefully the next superintendent gets a warm welcome from our community at 150,000. Yeah, I'm
What's
still
the
mixed on
doctorate
that.
in? Is it in?
I'm not sure.
Is it in boilers?
Yeah,
Boiler
Tammy Lacey needs to have a
I was going to say,
definite boiler experience.
I just feel that the next person should have a boiler's license at the very least, something so that, if it breaks down, like we got somebody on hand who's going to be able to take a look at it there.
That's sort of an abstract concept. When you look at somebody that's in charge of these, I think you have to have a teaching certificate. I'm not sure. I'll have to. This is public. We can, of course, Google it, the requirements for the superintendent here. But in a lot of places, when you're the manager, you don't need to be a professional in that field, such as managers for doctors are not always doctors, and in fact are sometimes even making less money than doctors. So not the case here, set at 150,000, but I think that a lot of superintendents and a lot of these sort of managerial people don't start up at the bottom. You didn't start out as the janitor at Great Falls High and then work your way up to superintendent. That's simply not how it works here.
However, I think that'd be pretty awesome to see somebody who used to be a janitor at Great Falls High go on to become the superintendent. Like, I would be all for that. If they were a good manager, because then on top of that, boiler's license, added to the list of pros.
It's a dying art, too. Mike Rowe is right. We're losing some of these professions. Less people want to get into boilers and plumbing and the such. So it's rare that would happen.
Everyone wants to be a manager.
I guess so. We'll go to school and get your doctorate and move up from there. And Haver growth, and I have been to Haver recently, and no, there's little growth. I think we discussed that in the last episode where we pondered if it was growing or dying, and I think they were seeing some of the same trends of malls closing down and small businesses, and especially breweries. Talk about a microbrewery explosion that's coming up, but some of that business. But I don't think Haver is maybe stagnant, almost worse than Great Falls. At least Great Falls has some things.
Their mall seems to be about the same as ours. They haven't gotten any new stores. We're getting Harbor Freight.
What a time to be alive in Great Falls. That was the biggest perk of moving to Missoula.
Hold up, everyone. There is hope on the horizon for this town, I tell you.
Yeah, that was the old Herberger's building, right?
I believe so. Finally, yes, that one will be having some use to it.
We touched on police pay, and there's actually a new article here from The Economist that I'll definitely link in our YouTube video. That police forces are having trouble even at what they're paying, about $55,000 here in Montana, which is a pretty solid middle class pay for a first-year cop, in my opinion, is they're still having trouble filling those roles. So even with GFPD and Missoula PD, I think both departments are cutting a few positions this year, but they're still looking for replacement positions. So the positions that they're cutting are not filled, and they're also running a deficit of officers as well.
I can kind of understand it. It's a scary job still. So
it is a scary job, but not everybody gets the scary aspect. Maybe we'll have to interview somebody with more in-depth knowledge of this, but I think they all start as, first-level beat cops. You don't get into something more in-depth. You certainly don't get to detective without doing that walk of life first. So
we're going to put you
managing.
in the rich neighborhood first, kid.
Do they, or just stick them to the dogs?
I don't know, just like straight up, like, there you go. Listen, the only car left is the one that has kind of the crappy radio in it. So, anyways, oh look, you're assigned to the north side of town. Have fun. And then
good luck, and
go get him, sucker.
We'll see you in 12 hours. And that is very different, because the people in charge of that are people that definitely did do that beat, different than other managerial positions such as the superintendent.
Yeah, you got to climb the ranks in that position. So I don't know. In that regard, you would never see anyone. Hopefully, I mean, at least in our town, I don't think you would see anyone be thrust into that kind of a situation.
It'd be probably an unfortunate situation for him. I guess you call it a blue collar work. So, I mean, if you don't have the respect from the people you're supposed to be, supervising, you're not going to get far. And it's different than a lot of positions. Somebody in my family was, I'll not dox this person as well, but had aspirations of being a teacher. Actually, a few people did that actually made it, but their first couple of years they had to be in very underfunded, very awful schools in places that nobody wanted to go. Pretty much since I guess that's the demand for that job. But it sounds like a first-year officer can just jump right into wherever they want to be because there's a deficit.
Well, it's nice to be able to have a job that you can pick up and go anywhere and take up. Because everywhere needs cops.
Well, somewhere that possibly doesn't have enough, we're gonna move over to the Blackfeet Nation. Recap: they were at odds with the feds over medical marijuana, disproportionate incarceration, and we're gonna diss on CRTV in a complete 180. Because I found that the Proud Boys founder, Gavin, whatever, he's one of their main shows has the guy
with the mustache.
Yeah, the guy with that terrible mustache. He looks, for somebody that really hates gays, he's really not doing himself any favors with that look.
He doesn't hate gays, does he? I watched, actually, I had no idea that this was going to be on the docket, to be honest, but I had watched a thing on the Proud Boys the other day on YouTube, because I had not followed it at all, and it seems, I mean, not even, it just seems like a group of people who just want to start a fight and, like, let's get out there and brawl it out there, and...
that is exactly who they are. So they the Proud, not really a big problem for Montana, so we won't spend too much time on it. But we discussed CRTV and the Blaze combining into Blaze TV, and I'm disappointed because I did. Yeah, Blaze TV is what they're calling it. No, it's sort of
can't believe Glenn Beck won that one. You think they would have went with a rebrand?
You'd think a completely new company, but. Glenn Beck apparently has read The Art of the Deal.
Excellent.
And I did like Glenn Beck at times. I thought he was a bit eccentric.
Very entertaining, for certain.
Yeah, entertaining. Had a good show that he followed through with that made, very simple sense of his chalkboard and whatever. A bit eccentric, sometimes got a little too Alex Jonesy with his conspiracies and whatnot. So I'm disappointed to see him, shill-upping with these, the Proud Boys founder, who, and I had to look this up, and I watched more Gavin McInnes videos than anybody ever should, because you can't always believe the hype.
Went
People
down
say,
the YouTube
this guy,
rabbit hole, huh?
Yeah, way too far. This guy incites violence, he's terrible, and he absolutely does. point blank incites violence and calls for violence. Not only does he call for violence against people whom he directly opposes, he calls violence on people that support his cause but are opposed to violence.
Strange.
Yeah, but they just want to fight.
I mean, he's not even a member, because the last video I watched where I was like, okay, well, that's enough Proud Boys for me for one day, he was stepping down not too long ago. He's all like, I'm done, not a part of it anymore, I'm out. And
how bad did the Proud Boys have to get?
I don't know. He
like, what happened?
It didn't
there?
look like there was any kind of like you know how like when you have a gang initiation, you have to get beat in and beat out, or blood in, blood out. Is that Aryan Brotherhood's the blood in, blood out? You got to kill to get in and kill to get out. But usually in gangs, they got to jump you to get in and jump you to get out. You know, and
gangs let you out?
No. Well, it depends. I don't know.
Well, apparently he's getting
All
out,
of
so
the
maybe
documentaries
they're not
I've ever
gang.
watched on gangs on like the History Channel and stuff with former gang members were usually like, yeah, I was blessed, I was allowed to leave. And it's like, wow, you must have done some really wild stuff there, dude. But
Allowed to leave, that's...
I have no idea,
so-
though. Never been in anything with a gang.
I guess, because the Proud Boys, last I checked, were not considered a terror or organization, nor a gang. However, our law enforcement is fighting the big threats, juggalos.
Well,
Considered a gang.
yeah. I mean, I think that was more... who was running the FBI at the time that happened?
That was under Clinton, I believe, so... Was it Comey? Or is that further back?
Oh, jeez. I was going to say, whoever it was, I feel that was probably due to a personal gripe with the Juggalo community and with ICP. I'm just wondering, was it because somebody found a bunch of ICP CDs and weed in their kid's bedroom, or did they find out they were dating a Juggalo, their daughter or something? I mean, there's quite a bit of reason potentially for enrage towards that group, but I think we can all agree that putting them on the old terrorist watch list there's a bit far.
A bit far. They don't do much of anything. Maybe they should be on the list. I mean, they spray Faygo on everybody at the concert, and that's a complete waste, and you get all sticky. And it's an outdoor thing, of course, because the ICP can't be housed anywhere. It has to be done in a forest. Or sanitation all the way around.
I just was there. I wonder, with the Trump era here, all the deregulations currently involved. This is a great segue for one of our topics up ahead here. Do you think the Juggalos used any of these deregulations with the environment to their advantage with their gathering of the Juggalos Festival, which is held outdoors in a forest?
Yeah, in a forest, but it's not as legit as the Rainbow Gathering, which, they don't bother with permits. They just show up. I think the Juggalos.
I wouldn't say
legitimate.
Is that the right word? Like there's really no organization. They just kind of show up in one place, don't they? The Rainbow people?
Yeah, I don't know how you get an invite.
They don't have the internet, those people. Do they?
No, I think they keep it shielded from the internet. I mean, you don't want the people, finding out. Every time they do it, the FBI or somebody shows up and tries to make a
you have to
stand.
really climb
like
the hallucinogen ranks at Burning Man in order to get an invite to this thing. It sounds like.
It sounds like it. I have been to one as a child, which maybe says something about my upbringing.
Wild,
but. Wild. I think I was 10 or something, and it was a blast, as I recall, just running around with other wild kids and playing and whatnot. But I have never gotten an invite. So the Rainbow people.
Hopefully your parents picked you up instead of a different family.
Yeah, I think they're.
I'm bringing up all sorts of hard questions here tonight. I apologize.
So, anybody in the... they don't have a spokesman, I assume, but anybody in the Rainbow community, maybe will show up and do some actual reporting.
I would gladly welcome it. I would like to be enlightened on their culture and everything to do with them.
It sort of feels like just a much larger rave in the forest, like the ones they commonly have around this area. Lolo, I forget what they call it, but they do several. They have one large one every year outside of Lolo, where these young druggies take over Lolo Hot Springs, and I've been to a few of those and had a great time. So
I think I've heard of these ones before, but never gone. Haven't had the time.
Well, let's dive right into our new topics. I suppose we'll give a rundown of exactly what we're going to be talking about and then dive right into it. Start with rural broadband here and discussing, of course, Montana's rural and Tesla's involvement with that and the USDA as well. Of course, we can't have a political podcast about talking about Zinke this week. We're going to go to Browning, discuss the Blackfeet, and a quick notes on things that are happening in Butte, the Onion, and weed in Montana, or hemp, I guess, in that same line of products, I think.
You know it. All right, so first on the docket there then, the rural broadband. Tester's always been a really big advocate for getting this part of the country connected.
Absolutely, he has, and he's tried to do it a few different ways. I guess it looks like he started with the USDA, and that's the Department of Agriculture, which you would think would have nothing to do with rural broadband.
On the contrary, however, farmers use the internet.
Yeah, those...
Gotta figure out how to grow shit.
You gotta Google that. Now, if your John Deere tractor isn't connected, it may not start, so it's very important
that is something worth talking about there, Jim. I didn't even think about that with USDA.
Yeah, the right to repair. Maybe we'll do some research for a further episode, because last I knew they were still fighting to repair. Specifically the John Deere, it sounds like the worst of it. They took the Apple approach to products. You're not even allowed to open the hood.
Yeah, you need to have a certified technician there in order to do so, just in case you do it incorrectly. I wonder, is it Case H? Case I?
Yeah,
Case H?
Case International Harvester.
Those are the ones. I wonder if they're still the old starter up with the key and press down on the gas and go forward there, if you gotta sync back up to the servers on the other side of the country.
Yeah, very important to know, where they're going. Of course, tractor isn't a simple device anymore. It's less of that, and they have ones that'll plow your field completely unmanned. Just navigates through itself through GPS, and you don't even have to be in it.
It'd be nice to be a farmer and be able to just hang out in your office all day.
Your office, which is another tractor probably. But of course, those the price of tractors is ridiculous. I was always dumbfounded by spending $1 million plus on a tractor, a tool. And so you're finding less and less farms own tractors, and they have sort of not really a cooperative almost. They're owned by somebody, and they're sort of loaned and used around by the community, especially for... Well, obviously, that only works for smaller farms. The big guys actually usually pay out-of-state folks to come in. They bring all their own equipment, harvest their fields, and do tours of different facilities in Montana.
I could see this leading to bigger corporation farming. You're going to see a lot of the bigger players. I don't even know who they are because I'm not involved in corporate farming, but I imagine that the guys who have the financial backing to afford these massive multi-million-dollar tractors would come in with the state-of-the-art tractors and run off of fields that they lease. And then, Farmer Joe ends up being, some kid with a bachelor's degree who's, in some office in Iowa, I could see it happening.
Iowa, good farmland, second only to Montana, I think. But you're absolutely right. There is land leasing, and we've discussed a number of times on Montana Voices, is the sort of consolidating of farms. You no longer have the idea of a family farm, and granted, we only had that for maybe 3-4 generations in America, since probably the 1800s or so, where you your farm was your livelihood, and that same property got handed down generation by generation. That concept is sort of going away for the most part, and farms are getting consolidated. We have efficiencies of scale where a tractor's $1 million, and if you have, say sub 1,000 acres, which we did outside of Laurel, I think 890 or somewhere around there. It's just the money doesn't make sense. You can't afford these tractors. You end up going it with old equipment, and as a result, you're working just as hard as your grandpa was in 1960, and you're most likely have a job to support your farming habit, like everybody who's been in farming that I know has.
Yeah, it's a rough business to be in there. I commend anyone who is able to take it up and do it the way they do it.
Unless you're a large industrial farmer, and that's where it's at. You don't even farm your own thing. You pay a roving gang of Mexicans to come, and they bring all their own equipment. They harvest everything for you, and they do all the work, and then they're on to the next farm.
Jeez. Well, how does Tester tying this back into the internet there, apart from just like it being a gateway to outsourcing, which really just kind of makes it a red flag of we don't want it here?
Well, that's somewhat limited for the as far as being a gateway to outsourcing, in my opinion. But one of the first iterations he did was a loan program through the USDA, where rural broadband providers could apply for almost a no-interest loan to develop rural facilities. And I checked his website, and I think it was February this year that he reported in 3 years the USDA had only approved 3 loans, which obviously isn't.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, isn't very productive. So he's doing the thing, the thing where he has the glasses and then he looks over them. He has the glaring eyes, and
he starts asking the tough questions about. God, what did he ask about? I'm trying to think. The candy, that was it. The prescription candy. How much prescription candy were you handing out?
Candyman Jackson. He won out.
I will say that, like, with this administration, like, Montana is in the spotlight a lot more than I have been comfortable with in the past, for reasons on both sides of the aisle. But comparatively to like every other presidency, people keep looking back at Montana for a lot of stuff.
Well, our next president could be from Montana. I haven't heard Tester's name in the hat yet, but
apparently there's over 30 Democrats right now that are considering it, so I would not put it past him to try it out.
He should he did win against Trump. Make no doubt, Rosendale was just the name on it, but it was Tester versus Trump in this last election.
Yeah, let's be honest here.
Maybe has a shot there. Of course, we'll see what his aspirations are, see if he wants to escape Big Sandy even further.
He can never escape Big Sandy. He'll be back.
Yeah, he'll fly back on the weekends, fire up the case, and be back at it.
AF1 be coming in to Great Falls International. We'll just have to create like a whole new hangar for it or something, so it's here. Everyone's complaining about Trump on the golf course, and I could see with Tester, if he were to ever get in office, it'd be constantly, that son of a bitch is going back out to the farm.
Yeah, true. They'll probably suspect he's vacationing out there.
He's not even growing anything of substance.
Wasn't it organic wheat? I can't remember what he was growing, but
I forget. Yeah, he was a farmer, so like.
But he was organic, I thought. I might be wrong.
Well, I commend him on not using chemicals.
Well, everything's a chemical and organic. One of the things I found from some of a family I know that does wheat farming, they are certified organic. But before then, like maybe 5 years past, they were definitely not organic. So this thing could be sprayed. 3 years is the minimum sort of gap period between spraying and not spraying, essentially. So you could be dousing your entire property with DDT for 100 years straight, and as long as those 3 clean years, you can then claim to be organic.
Well, prove it.
And so organic, you obviously can't use the chemicals and the pesticides and such, but you put wheat in a bin, and the bugs and the mice love it. So you still have to have some sort of remedies for that. So one of the things I saw him use was a
cat.
almost looks like a salt. It's yeah, you need lots of cats.
It's just how we do things around this wheat farm. So careful of the cats.
And I don't know if you've lived on a farm like we have, but cats, yeah, people are terrible, and they will abandon their cats there. And out of the hundreds of cats that were abandoned, I only remember a handful of them ever surviving for any extended period of time. But
pretty much every time
cats
I'm
just show up.
on a farm, like, I'll always see a random ass cat, and a lot of times, whoever owns the farm's, I don't know, it's just an animal. Oh.
There's cats there, and one of the fun things with the cats, with the feral cats, the ones that survive that become very feral, you can get nowhere near them. And if you move a hay bale, all the mice are going to scatter, and the cats know you're doing it, so they'll hang out near the top of the haystack and wait for you to move the bale.
Wow.
And it's the closest you can get to some of these cats. But back on subject with rural broadband.
Jeez.
Yeah, the USDA thing failed, so Tester had an initiative, Connect Montana, which tied into the federal CAF program, which is the Connect America Foundation, which is a program that gives some subsidies to internet service providers to provide service in these very rural areas. And CAF has been out for a number of years, and there's a number of Montana companies that are getting payments from these. Of course, you can Google it. I can't identify them, but it's, of course, public record as well. But this last year, the FCC came out with new CAF standards. They said to these ISPs, we're paying you this money for this. Now we need a verification of service. And they consider 10 by 1 to be a broadband speed, quotation mark, 10 by 1. And 25 by 1 is your tier 2, 25 by 3 or somewhere around there. But their new standards require that you randomly select approximately about 10% of your client base, and you install a device inside their home that basically does a speed test once a minute for the entire peak period, and having thousands of these devices out there. So a bit kind of a push and shove there. We're going to give you money, but this is how we want you to use it.
I would be
and
so pissed as a user to have that. Like, is that added on to their current bandwidth speed, or that's crazy. It's like, in order for them to prove that they're providing that bandwidth, they have to hog that bandwidth,
Well, there is some guidance on that. I think if they're using more than like 56K or some minuscule number that you do not test during that test window, you check again in the next minute and then try to test again.
Oh, so you're testing it when no one else is using it. Okay, well.
Yeah, you're testing it when idle, but during peak periods, so I don't know how many tests they're going to get. And but it's very beta, the requirements that were released. So you don't know how you're supposed to report that information back to the FCC. You don't know, how it says to randomly select about 10% of your clientele. It doesn't tell you how to, randomly select 10% of your clientele if you just put names in a bucket or whatever. And of course, the data formatting is another thing. And then what to do when customers tell you that you don't want the government in your home.
Yeah, I assume a lot of people are going to see this as a red flag.
Yeah, imagine.
What are you telling the NSA about me?
No, this is going to test your speeds to a government speed test server. It's going to be fine.
It's just a .gov.
Oh, is it?
It's just .gov. It's no harm. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of people shooting their modems.
So, the funding for this, $6.8 million was allocated specifically for northeastern Montana, which is, definitely very rural and definitely needs all the... I wouldn't say they need all the help they could get, but they're the highlight up there.
Any dollars help.
Yeah, but of course they, handed out checks before they came with a requirement, so they sort of did not really a click and bait, and maybe some of these companies that took this money should have suspected better. I mean, yeah, you can have this money, and we're going to tell you what we want from you, but later.
Clearly, no one who signed up for this had ever dealt with student loans in the past.
Well, they're
Yeah,
They're
they end up
managers of,
emailing you again. They don't forget.
yeah, they're managers of ISPs in the middle of nowhere, so maybe not. So, our next matter, Zinke is out, and that is very fresh as of yesterday. So, we had discussed that.
Oh, I'm sorry to talk over you there, Jim. I was going to say a lot of people had suspected this for quite some time, that there was some foul play with that son of a gun.
Well, there was some foul play, and people are still calling for him to be investigated, even though he's out. Travel expenses and business dealings in Whitefish, which seems like small fries compared to other corruption that we've seen in this administration. So, I don't know if they'll still investigate Zinke or if he's off the hook here.
Yeah, I mean, the government's a big group, so I'm sure they can find somebody with free time to look into this, but I mean, is this still about the Puerto Rico stuff?
Yeah, I believe about Puerto Rico and then travel expenses. Oh, wait, he traveled to Puerto Rico? Or was that his Whitefish
I thought that was
dealing?
Mnuchin that was traveling. Because Mnuchin's wife, posted something about how she was rich and better than poor people. And everyone was like, wait a second, you're, it's quite a nice government plane you're on there, lady. And it raised some eyebrows. So I don't know whatever became of it there, but travel expenses. Oh, jeez. That sucks when they start asking for receipts, I know.
Absolutely. Well, nothing came of that with Mnuchin, so maybe nothing will come of that here. The Whitefish thing, something might come of that, but there's, literally bigger fish to fry, so maybe this is a good tactic to sort of take him out of the limelight here.
It seems like that's what he's trying to do, because he's jumping out the day before the Democrats get oversight.
Yeah, that's probably a good move on his part. But, has there been contention between Zinke and Trump in the past? I haven't seen much publicly, and I can't recall if there was that. Of course, Trump is, no stranger to calling people out directly on Twitter.
No, he's not said much about Zinke. He's, I can't think of anything that he's said negative about him. The one thing that comes to mind with Zinke is his first day of office there, to let everybody know that he was from Montana by showing up, riding a horse in. I'd like to make note that Ted Cruz never, ever rode a horse into office any day of the week. So, the one-up for Montana over Texas in that regard.
We're so much better than Texas anyway.
Absolutely.
So... And, yeah, we didn't elect somebody like Ted Cruz, so I like to think that all of our candidates look unlike Uncle Fester. So, is that
wow, I forgot about that reference. Regardless of the shortcomings or, potential corruption from anybody from Montana, they're still from Montana, so they're still repping. We do it better than everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's out, but there were some people were suspecting that he might run for governor of Montana. Of course, Bullock is going to be in the general election as well. I don't know whom is going to run, but apparently, according to USA News, they interviewed him, and Zinke says he will not run for governor in 2020. So I don't know if he has his eyes on another position or if he's going to try to stay out of the light for a while. But also doesn't mean that he won't, do a 180 and, in fact, run for governor.
It's hard to say. With the entire Trump administration, it seems like every week we find out something new, bombshell-like. A lot of people probably are going to say that that's not true, and it's all a bunch of hyperbole there. I think that's the correct word. But
I'm going to be one of those people, but go ahead and finish.
He could be jumping out of the limelight because he can see the writing on the wall, and I could definitely see that as a possibility right now. But who knows?
Yeah, I do like how he's getting out while they're, I guess, still ahead, because so many people like have been involved in this and have just gotten utterly burned, from their involvement with the Trump administration. That I'm glad that he's not going to prison, and there's probably no sight of that happening soon.
No, everything I've seen for him has been pretty much like, this seemed a little fishy. None of it is like this, wow, this guy belongs in prison right now. It's all pretty low-time stuff.
Yep, so maybe he'll get out with a fine. But sort of that comment you made about, this administration being I'll use the term dumpster fire because I think it is, to be quite honest. But I also think that, one of the things that we seek to explore in this podcast is why people, as people who don't support Trump, we just can't wrap our heads around why people do. And that was sort of the goal for me, is to understand people in that regard. But the media, in my opinion, and I'm saying this as a non-Trump supporter, does have it out for him and has had him out as a joke and a criminal fraudster from day one. He might be all of those things, but the attention that he gets from it and the sort of, nitpicking thing, if Trump walked out of a bathroom with a piece of toilet paper on his shoe, we would hear nothing about it or we'd hear only about it for a whole day.
We did.
That
happened. And they reported.
Did it really?
Yeah, and they reported on it. He, I believe he was walking up Air Force One and he had some toilet paper stuck to his shoe. And yeah, they played the clip over and over enough times that even I thought it was a little ridiculous. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The media is out.
You're making my point. I did not know about that.
They're out to, I wouldn't say, get him necessarily, but like you can definitely tell that they're not making it easy. Well, he's making it easy for them to, drag him through the mud like that.
Well, he is making it easy, and there's lots of things to, put some honest spotlight and honestly criticize. However, with the attention and the time that they spend on the dumb things, like the verbal mishap that he had at the UN, where, remember it was reported how much they were laughing at Trump, and turns out when you look at the full clip in context, they were laughing with him as somebody he was giving a good speech, and he was in control of the audience as a good public speaker, which you may consider him to be, even if he's a good public speaker with no scripts, we'll say that. But the attention they give him for that, when people see the toilet paper thing, they see the UN thing, they see entire late night talk shows, front to end, just nothing but bashing Trump, and they see that in the same light as Trump committed collusion, it's the same thing. They're like, these people are out to get him. They see the media, as a whole.
They see it as a collective hit, yeah.
So, and they take it with just as much credence. You're like, Trump colluded, Trump has toilet paper on his shoe. That, coming from these people, it means the same thing.
Stephen Colbert brings the same amount of credibility to the table as Don Lemon,
And I get, Stephen Colbert, start on that. He's not funny. He used to be funny. I'm going to go there. He did some things to late night. The show, short of, even after they have guests that aren't Trump or aren't political on, it still talks about Trump. The entire show is Trump. And, that's not why people turn late night. And granted, David Letterman before him, took a lot of good jabs at politicians, but they were exactly that, good jabs, and you didn't spend the whole day making fun of a president. And, there were some idiots during Letterman's time. I will say that as well, including Donald Trump himself at that time. So he's doing a disservice to late night. He at least needs to cut it down to just 5 minutes, and then let's just keep going. He could almost just make a segment on politics. And he came from a sort of political satire show, so that would be perfectly canon with his thing. But this whole Trump thing, front to back pretty much, or at least all of the monologue usually, is, getting old. So
I can see how it could lose viewers too, because I've had a lot of people tell me that same thing of he's just not funny anymore because it's just nothing but guess what, the president sucks. And yeah, we know, Steven. It's tell us something else of substance there. So you have a lot of people tune into James Corden because they want to see the new freshness that the likes of Corden and Reggie Watts are bringing to the table instead, you know?
Reggie Watts from Montana. I do believe our Facebook page likes him, if I recall. If not, that will be soon be corrected by the time.
You know, we aim to support all musicians and artists from the state and from towns within the state, and he's one of them there. So yeah, Reggie Watts, in any capacity there, check him out. He's a great guy.
Yep, absolutely. And some of his work is incredible, and some of his work is honestly, you see his things and you see it as a joke, but I can't remember the song he did. It was a song about dating or something, but he touched on feminism a little bit, and just in the middle of it, like, something clicked and made sense to me. And as a 30-something-year-old male, like, how could I not understand this before about, ownership of a partner and etc. So give him a more serious look than you might otherwise, because there's some real substance there.
Indeed, and I believe actually he is on tour right now. I'm looking it up right now on my phone to see where he's at, but I believe he is going to be at, I want to say Missoula here?
Oh, goodness. Maybe I'll run into him again. I ran into him at Market on Front.
Let's see. He's going to be, yes, it'll be Friday, 8 p.m. He's going to be playing the Wilma in Missoula.
Oh, that's the place to be.
Indeed, so.
Well, I hope he likes his $5 breakfast burritos, because, we'll run to him at Market on Front where I saw him before, and try my best to talk to him in words, but he was very cordial. And it's got to be annoying when so many people come up to you, it's like, I love your work, you made a big difference to me, I'm so and so. That's got to get old, but he still understands the field that he's in and was cordial and takes it like a champ, I guess.
Indeed, I can assume. Well, he's from Great Falls as well, so going to Missoula. Oh, geez. God, I wish I could ask him. Reggie, your thoughts on Missoula? Being from Great Falls, what do you think, man?
He's sort of the Missoula. He's the Missoula crowd.
Yeah,
I mean, when you
absolutely
hear that he's from Montana and he has that look and that big hair.
Yeah, if you would ask somebody, like, what town from Missoula or from Montana is this guy from? And they probably would tell you either Missoula or Bozeman, but you hit him with the zinger. Great Falls. And what, the Air Force Base?
Yeah, the Air Force and the wheat, and then he interrupts and tells you they have a second Walmart now. But back to the great show on James Corden, and I think he approaches politics, correctly and in the spirit of great late show comedians in the past, unlike Stephen Colbert. But what is the Colbert Show gonna do when Trump is no longer in office, be it 2020 or further, 2024? They'll have to not be so lazy in their writing, I guess.
I was say they're going to have to hire new writers because the current ones are getting just oversaturated with political comedy that they won't be able to write a normal joke without throwing in some sort of jab at Republicans.
Absolutely, and I've never seen David Letterman and Johnny Carson and all these great late night hosts before have never told a sitting president to fuck himself, which I've seen Colbert do more than once in exactly those terms.
Unprecedented.
Go fuck yourself, Mr. President.
Yeah. Unprecedented, I believe, is the term that is being thrown around for stuff like that lately. And
absolutely. Well, late night, other than Reggie Watts, not a whole lot to do with Montana, so I'm not even sure how we got here, but let's go back to Browning.
Geez, yeah. Bring us back home there,
Yeah, and I recently had some work in Browning this week, or through Browning, and my goodness, the wind there was absolutely horrendous.
I've had to drive through Browning as well before in a van, a very tall van, and man, it's one of the only, I'd say there, I don't know, do you think that's more windy than the High Line for you, personally?
I think it might be. We started over in Cut Bank, and I was like, well, this is terrible. How can this get any worse? And I was with the guy from a different company who said, well, we might not be able to continue. And I was basically like, yeah, let's not be a wuss. We've got things to do. Let's go out here and do it. And then
it's just some wind.
Yeah, just wind, whatever. We got most of the way to Browning, and
we're not even flying.
I knew it was. Yeah, not practically flying, and I had to use all my strength even to open my door because I parked facing the wind. So,
Well, you're probably smart doing that so that when you opened your door, the wind didn't rip your door off of the hinges.
yeah, that'd be unfortunate in the brand new truck. Can't wait till that first dent. But Browning, of course, and this is sort of inspired by a Reddit post about visiting and vacationing in Montana. When asked about crime rates and such, several users, whom I'm not even sure if they're Montanans or if they've been to a reservation, were very fervent and pointed out that you should not go to the reservation. And my first thought was, why? As comparatively white people, as I guess me and you are, there's not much of a second thought if we need to go to a reservation or through a reservation. We do just that without a thought about it. So I'm concerned that people that don't live here and probably have never been to the reservation are saying these things. So
Yeah, anybody that I know coming from outside of the state to the state, I make a point to tell them that they should go to the reservation.
And we have some great things, but we are not talking about those great things. The B-roll on this video is an actual trip through Browning, where I went through some of the side streets, and you can see Browning for itself. But we do need to point out Browning is no longer a town as of 2016.
Indeed, they're flying solo, independent.
Well, it was disincorporated at that time, and all of its assets were given to the tribe to handle some debts that were owed as ordered by, I think, Clark County Court, which makes sense. And it sort of blew my mind that the city of Browning was not part of the tribe. But then when you take that further out, you realize that Glacier County, of course, is not part of the tribe, even though a good portion of it is on the reservation, and a good portion of the reservation is actually Glacier County. So, it's just so weird that it has Brown in the name, and it's probably the most native town that most people in Montana can think of, was never part of the tribe.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. Jeez.
And in fact has a long record going, for as long as the history I can find on Browning, the city of Browning was fighting with the tribe.
That's crazy.
Which brings us to another entity that has some clout in that area. I hope I'm pronouncing right, the SIA Corp, SIYEH Corporation, pursuant to the Indian Reorganization Act, that formed an actual corporation to operate outside of reservation politics. For the sake, they're essentially like a more powerful chamber of commerce for the reservation. That's an actual company, I think is the best way to explain them.
Let's see.
And interesting tidbit about them, they are the managers of the Glacier Peaks Casino up in Browning. And when they sought funding to build that one of the stipulations that the bank put on them is that this was managed by the corporation, and specifically not the tribe nor the city of Browning.
Jesus. They have... Their cafe in that place is so good. Small business shout out to this Glacier Peaks Casino Cafe. I mean, we might as well do that and get that out of the way here, because I'm just thinking about it, man, BLT I had there last time was really good.
I have been there, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and unfortunately, I have missed this. Another Browning shout-out. I've missed this every time I've been to Browning. Last I was told they were cast only. Nation's Burger, I do hope they're still open. Have you seen them?
Have I seen them?
Nation's Burger is what it's called.
No.
And I'm told it is hands down the best burger in the state, and this is from somebody or people that have also had Burger Dive in Billings, so I don't think they're fronting me
and
here.
Roadhouse?
Yes, the ones from Great Falls, so and Roadhouse.
Okay. Really?
So they say it's hands down the best burger in the state. However, they have weird hours. They're not owned by tribal members, but people that do live in Browning, from what I can tell.
I see.
But best burgers, cash only, weird hours, hard to find, and I've missed it every single time.
Hard to find. Why is it hard to find? Are they like selling them out of the back of a car or something?
Hard to find as I've driven through town and never seen them.
Oh, does it exist, or is somebody lying to you? Do they have a
It exists.
Facebook
They even
page?
have a website.
Oh, well, what does their website say for
Hold on.
address? I don't know. We should really go there sometime.
All right, it's Nation's Burger Station in Browning. And, it took all of us a few moments to realize that we do have the entirety of the internet at our fingertips on multiple devices right in front of us. And you think I could find it better because it's at 205 Central Avenue in Browning.
Now, if anyone feels that we're wrong to the point that they want to correct us on the show, too, by all means, give us a shout out and let us know. It's pretty easy to get on the show with us here.
Yeah, minimal requirements. So, Nation's Burger Station, best burgers as anyone has ever had, who's had it, has told me. I have not personally had it. It's high on my list, though.
Okay, so this is currently a mythical. I'm willing to bet that they're probably correct here, but I'm gonna make a point next time I'm running through Browning to try and stop this place.
Bring cash, because I guess they only do cash there.
Who carries cash?
It's off the books here.
All right, fine.
So, back to the, the casino. The Sia Corp wanted to have it in a town in East Glacier. There was a facility that was large enough to house a casino. They had it there, and even though it was within reservation borders, it was also within national park borders, just right on the edge in East Glacier before you leave the reservation. And eventually, the Forest Service decided that they have the ultimate authority over the reservation in that area that's also their area, and so they were uninvited to have their casino there.
Jeez.
Yeah, which is independent sovereign nation or domestic dependent nation, whatever you call them nowadays. Those terms are meaning less and less the more we look into.
Say you can have your land. No, you can't run a casino on your land or smoke weed on your land, but you can have your land. It's your land still. You just can't do these things on it.
So a lot of people think, and I'm of these people, or used to think, that the reservations can run a casino outside of Montana and specifically state laws because that they are their own sort of sovereign entity of some sort. And it turns out that is not the case. That the government did make in the middle 80s, the National Indian Gaming Commission is a commission that specifically set out to legalize and regulate gaming on reservations. And since then, we've seen an outpour of casinos. So it turns out this is encouraged and regulated by federal law, not their own thing operating outside of the law or operating within their own law. I'll say.
Not surprised at all there that Uncle Sam gets his out of this one.
But the black meat are not without their trouble. Recent news: Sharp, this Sharp lady, who's I don't think is native, but is guilty, or she admitted to embezzlement from the Head Start program by means of overrepresenting overtime that was worked by her and other key people. Documents only say that she's a resident. I have yet to be able to find a picture of her, and that she is 60, but does not make any mention that she is a tribal member. However, her last name's Sharp, so...
well,
and that
this
came
was
from
not a Sharp
KRTV
move there. You should never embezzle money, and you should never fudge your timesheet like that. It's pretty screwed up. So, God, can they just, this is their problem. They keep getting mismanaged by these people that are screwing it up and fudging the numbers there to get their own personal benefit, I guess. But
and it's sad. It absolutely is sad that happens. And generally looking at the reservation, which of course our viewers on YouTube are, because there is B-roll of driving through this reservation. It looks like that some of the poverty and some of the things we're seeing are a result of that mismanagement. I'm not entirely sure that is the case. They might be two independent and sovereign, or two independent issues. I there definitely is some nepotism, mismanagement, corruption, downright theft. But as far as I know, those things happen everywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. I shouldn't. Wrong wording there. It happens other places just as much, I'm sure. I think we see a lot of reporting on it in these places because it's a big deal when it happens there, because there's not a lot of other stuff that happens on the res, I guess.
And is there a reporting bias here? Is probably my question here. If there's any corruption, anybody arrested on the res, a drug thing on the res, it's actual news. But it feels like if it happens in Missoula or Great Falls, it's mentioned, but it's on the third page as opposed to the Carrot TV leading story like this sharp embezzlement thing was.
Yeah. Do you have, how much federal oversight is on stuff like this? With it not being a town and stuff, I'm not sure where the Head Start program comes in, but I just wonder if that's why we see so much more of it coming out of there, is because a more scrutinous eagle snooping through the books there, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yep, that is a good point that I
don't know.
I had not considered.
I have no idea on this.
So
we should really get an expert on here. If you're an expert on this, hit us up.
Well, so maybe some bias or some reporting bias is that, it's hard to say the federal government's effective at anything, but that they're effective at rooting out crime on reservations where they have direct oversight authority. So maybe that is a factor as well.
Indeed. Speaking of crime on the reservation, that's a great segue point into our next Grimm's topic here. Looks like they have found some human remains on the Blackfeet Reservation. When this story dropped, I believe this was on Friday, the FBI was getting involved to remove the human remains. At the time, they couldn't confirm which cases they were thinking it would be related to. Of course, you saw a lot of people immediately asking if it was tied to the Ashley Lauren Heavy Runner case. So the FBI still hasn't made mention of that or really said anything on this, so everyone's still kind of waiting to see what comes of that.
Point out it's the FBI in Salt Lake City that's investigating this, which is there not a closer branch?
No.
I'm not sure.
Quite the drive. Probably flew.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of travel time and overtime, my goodness.
Geez, make sure you keep your receipts.
Well, I researched this quite a bit, and people have recommended that we disagree more, and I thought we were on this, because I was going hard with an opinion that some of the trouble that, the Blackfeet and other reservations are having, or some of the, I guess, very apparent trouble that you see when you drive through there, is as a result of government intervention and government dependence from the federal government level. But as I looked more into this and other issues that we researched for this week's episode, I can't say that I'm sure anymore. I can't say that I can definitively defend that point.
It's hard to say. With the amount of disappearances, and then on top of that, when you drive through those areas and you see the amount of just police presence and such, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired, So I can see how someone could say that there's not enough being done.
Or enough being done? I guess my former opinion was there was, too much being done. And this is often a point you hear from, quite honestly, usually racist, or at least people that are ignorant, is that, it's time to cut the natives off of the, government tit and my tax dollars and let them be. And I was sort of having that same idea, not from the stance of federal funding, but from a stance of direct federal involvement in their everyday lives. So, different approach, but maybe the same ends. And by the way, it's not that much money, and it is money that, you can't complain when your government, it basically forcibly takes over a region and then can self-appoint terms in their own government treaty that they wrote, and there was essentially no choice but to accept or face further genocide. Yeah, and you can't complain about the very meager compensation, for land. We're not giving Indians anything. I don't know, stole all of Montana. Well, since we only talk about Montana, or the nation, felt bad about it, so we wanted to give them money. Essentially, it's a transaction.
You can use this at our capitalism stores.
Yeah, exactly. It's really a sad thing when you look into like the Hellgate Treaty of 1864, where it's like, not only first whites came here, killed 90% of the native and Mexican populations, which were native just by accident, just by disease, not their fault on that one, other than their presence. And then with those weakened numbers, then waged wars. And it's like, well, here's the deal: we don't want to send the army here to control you. We also don't want you, attacking every wagon that wants to get to Missoula. So we'll give you this nice reservation, over by Kalispell and will later be Polson, and you just, stop attacking wagons, essentially. And here's a little bit of money.
And they went for it.
Well, there wasn't much of a choice.
Yeah, so...
I mean, we could, consider the genocide, or we'll agree that you're a part of the country, we'll put you somewhere, we'll give you schools, roads, etc. Essentially, what it was. Because the reservations are not that much different. I mean, you consider them a nation or a sovereign entity. You go there and, it looks just like, Cut Bank looks like a less crappy Browning. It's the same thing with, government roads, etc. So maybe I'm getting on a soapbox here, but...
Yeah, good point, Jim. Just saying, we'll get off on my stepping off of the soapbox here. Last remark, Israel seems to get a lot of help still. So just saying. Anyways, close the door. Next topic here.
Yeah, we'll close the door on that. And school taxes, and this may be something we can agree on. This doesn't pertain directly to vouchers, but school vouchers. The Montana Supreme Court has struck down a tax credit that did aid religious schools. I guess that was a pseudo voucher. You get that credit if your kids go to a private school that you pay for. And I guess I understand where people are coming from, that if you send your children to private schools, you're still paying income taxes and county taxes, property taxes on money that goes to public schools.
That's why they call it a public school and a private school. It's kind of like part of the terms.
That is part of the terms, but the fact is that if you send your children to private school, you are paying for that, and you're paying for, that's sort of where people go one off. If you're well enough to pay for private school, maybe you should be paying more taxes for public school.
I'd like to know when we're going to open up a private park, and then I can start advocating that I don't have to pay my city taxes, because I don't want to use the public park. I want to use the private park. And I want a voucher for that private park.
You can do that with state parks. On your Montana license plate on the registration, there is a parks fee. If you waive that fee, you theoretically don't have access to the parks that you get to for free, like Yellowstone and Glacier. Out-of-staters have to pay for that.
Will they pay for me to go to a private park?
I understand the hair you're splitting.
They're going down the right path with that. Let's go. Let's travel that road a couple more feet there. But
this wasn't a voucher, but a tax credit. So it, sort of a year-end voucher, I suppose. It sort of works the same. And in fact, I don't know exactly how much money we're talking about here, but I'm just going to disagree with you that if you are paying, I understand that public schools are for the benefit of everyone. That even as somebody that maybe you never even went to Montana public school or doesn't have children there, you still reap the benefits of having an educated populace for children. So that effect I get. So maybe the voucher system I wouldn't go as far as, but a little bit less on your taxes. We can certainly agree that taxation is theft, but
absolutely,
a little breathing room in the taxes I don't think is unwelcome. So, but of course that went to the Supreme Court. I don't know if that's going to go to the federal Supreme Court, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that one. I think that I mean, because a lot of people are still doing that just for religious reasons, and for that reason, I think that they should still be allowed some sort of credit for that. That just seems humane, but yeah. Then you get into the whole separation of church and state thing, and then you're all riled up. Whatever, Next topic.
And churches paying taxes, and it's a rabbit hole. Maybe another time we'll discuss religion in
we'll get a professional, a Montana religion professional.
We'll get there. So the Onion is in Billings. Something I found when looking for independent and incredible sources is thebillingsbeat.com, which I found absolutely hilarious. So we're going to do an internet shout out to them.
It's BEET.
As in sugar beet for Billings.
And man, they have some really, you can tell it's truly original here because it's all focused directly in on Billings, and it's all pretty funny.
Yeah, one of the leading stories, Billings to build wall at Billings-Lockwood border, Lockwood to pay.
Which if you've been into Billings and Lockwood, you know that tiffed. Yeah.
And Tester finally admits Devil's Tower was inspiration for haircut. So, some light reading, and I suppose we'll...
Trump endorses Gene Forte quitting Congress for WWE. This is just nothing but good stuff here. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on here. This is funny.
Yeah, we should have saved that for an end for a positive note, because we're going right back into things with supporting the troops or not. A bill that was put forth by a Tester, of course, he is on the VA Foreign Affairs Committee, was to extend benefits of people they suspect have Agent Orange related diseases and cancers, extend coverage for Agent Orange to them. And I don't know if you remember, but for quite a long time, maybe even almost decades, the government denied Agent Orange was ever a thing, and then later on was a thing of consequence. And then at a point they had to admit that it was a thing, and it was a thing of consequence, and it was very harmful to the people, or the service members that were there, and they deserve better than this. So this bill specifically pertained to people that may have not had direct exposure to Agent Orange, but were working in places where they could have been where exposure would have been difficult to concretely document that, hey, Private Johnson encountered Agent Orange on this date and time, but are having some of the ill effects of Agent Orange, such as the cancers. So that did not get approved in the Senate. It died there.
Who the fuck voted no on that?
Well, certainly not Tester. And
what about Daines?
Yeah, I'm going to have to Google those results, and if he did, there is going to be...
I don't know. Daines probably voted yes on that, though. He loves the troops. He went there. He oversees.
Like on one of those, what do they call those tours where they bring the comedians and musicians around?
No, this wasn't a USO tour. I know what you're talking about. This wasn't a USO show. He just, there was, I'm trying to think of which branch got deployed. One of the branches got deployed, and he went over there to see them. It was around Thanksgiving time, I believe. He brought them high country beef jerky. That was right.
Oh, man.
Here you go. Bring you boys back home here in this bag, and it's oh, thanks, Senator, So I tell you what, high country beef jerky, anyone who's not from Montana that I, bring through, we stop there and they grab it and they're like, oh man, this is the best beef jerky in the world.
Out of Lincoln, for those not to know.
Lincoln, right. Universally known for Ted Kaczynski and the best beef jerky in the world.
But yeah, pretty unfortunate that failed. And as Tester pointed out, because there's quite a few video clips of him just doing the thing where he gets angry. Which in this case,
glasses there.
Yeah, looks over the glasses, has that stare, which is, ironic. That's the same thing they use in attack ads, where they have the black and white photo where, like, ominous music, tester doesn't have your values at mind.
Because Schumer does the same thing there. He peers down his very large ethnic nose there at people when he's going to do something corrupt.
Any moment now, you just wait and watch. Corruption's coming. Yeah, but they use that same clip in either, saying, Tester fights for you, or, Tester anonymous voting with Pelosi, whatever.
He's on the Soros payroll.
Same picture, so two sides of the coin there. Well, we're going to move on to weed or weed-based product or hemp. I have to admit, hemp is not weed, is that right?
That's what I'm told there,
It's in the same family, probably I think it's a different variety of weed, but hemp, under the new USDA guidelines, we can produce hemp, and it sounds like that a lot of Montana firms are going to try to be the first on that list to do that. So, of course, it has to be approved by the federal government, of course, but that is coming to Montana, so new agriculture, specifically in the plains regions. Obviously, we need those big fields for these sorts of things.
I'm wondering how long it is before somebody is out there inspecting the fields and hold up now, this isn't a hemp.
Wouldn't take too long. Do we have any weed farms in Montana?
I'm
legally recognized.
I mean, not
farms,
like at a federal level, but I mean, not that are not. Who knows? Maybe we have some sort of CIA black sites that have an underground weed farm or something. There's some crazy government facilities in the state. I know that much, but I think there's some like medical marijuana fields probably in a lot of areas.
Something for a future episode, but in the meantime, from the federal level, of course, coming down on us is if you have a green card, you cannot buy a gun.
Ooh.
Because the two are somehow related.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, they're involved with a bunch of like international treaties that make that so. And that's the reason you don't see a big push ever for it to be federally legalized. But
well, it says nothing about gifts or inheritances. A lot of guns are, so maybe a loophole in that. But things are getting more green around here regardless.
Indeed. Well, I mean, in this regard, I don't think that just the firearm ban, that can't cover hemp products. I think it's just for marijuana, I would imagine.
Yeah, just for marijuana.
Hemp, have a lot of very angry farmers there if they just found out that their newest crop venture has destroyed their 2A.
It's a good way to make sure that only Californians can grow it.
Sure bet.
Well, that concludes episode of 11 of Montana Voices. And thank you for listening.
Indeed. It was a pleasure having you all here with us tonight. Be sure to tune in again next week, Sunday. Again, if you'd like to email us with any kind of comments or concerns, our email address will be montanavoices@gmail.com. Twitter handle is going to be @MontanaVoices with an underscore in the middle there. Our Facebook page is @Montana Voices Podcast. Our Twitch will be up soon at twitch.tv/Montana Voices. And you can find all of our episodes now on YouTube if you just search for Montana Voices Podcast.